Welcome back to the Cryptoviser podcast. In today's video, we're going to be exploring losing $1.2 million in the markets, not understanding where we are in the cycle, not understanding the Bitcoin halving cycle, and maybe being a little bit too bullish. In today's video, we're going to be exploring the entire crypto market. We're going to explore that trade that lost $1.2 million. We're also going to talk about shorting the market and, the infamous James Wynn on X, who has been liquidated countless times and is now all in on a short position. In my view, we are in the end of the complacency phase in the crypto markets. We are well past the 18 months after the Bitcoin halving, which historically in every single cycle has marked the top of the crypto cycle. But people are still euphoric. People are still looking for that next catalyst, the extended cycle, the next top, the next big pump. And in my view, when the whole market is expecting that, it's already behind us. Don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up. This channel is about making money. And in my view, our analysis on the markets allow us to really understand where we are in the cycle so that we can make money and so that we don't lose any money, and especially not $1.2 million on just one trade. Give the video a free thumbs up. Let's get into it. So now we're hearing analysts saying that Big Short's Michael Burry's warning about the crypto market is real and that Bitcoin may crash 50%. Now, we have been covering this since I called the top of the market in the middle of 2025 at peak euphoria, which was when all of the Bitcoin treasury companies were starting to pop up. And we're going to talk about those Bitcoin treasury companies in just a few minutes. But a crypto market analyst known as Trader Delton told the Street Roundtable that Michael Burry's latest remarks about financial bubbles might actually be the most accurate thing anyone said this cycle. He said, quote, "The AI bubble, the crypto bubble, they're both real. The difference is that people think Bitcoin can have bubbles because it's decentralized, but it's not immune to human greed, leverage, or liquidity shocks. What we're seeing now could easily be the start of a 50% correction." Now, let's be clear. When I'm recording this video, right, Bitcoin has been wavering in the, just under $100,000 to about $110,000 level. Now, when I called the top of the market in the middle of 2025, that was in anticipation of the 18-month time frame after the Bitcoin halving, which historically has been the top of the market. Now, I told my viewers, and I still say, we can still go higher from here. I'm talking about the macro zoomed out picture. So whether we topped out, 3 weeks ago or 3 months ago or in 3 weeks from now or 3 months from now, it doesn't really matter. Because in the macro view, whether I get out of the market now or at the tippy top, it's all about de-risking. And we know that there is going to be a bear market. We know there is going to be a corrective phase. How low we go, I don't know, maybe 50%. I mean, as you guys know, if you watch my videos, I believe that we are at least going to touch MicroStrategy's dollar cost average price, which when I'm recording this video is around $74,000. And a lot of people, if they bought at over 100,000, they're like, no, Cryptoviser, I have not personally felt euphoria. It's like, well, that's because you bought the top of the market. That doesn't mean that we didn't go from 15,500 at the bottom of the bear market to $125,000. That's over a 10x. And that is historically, especially with diminishing returns, which you can clearly see from cycle to cycle, that is a pretty good number. I mean, in most stocks, they say the average stock index goes up about 7 to 10% a year. So if you're getting over over 10x, that is a really good number. So whether Michael Burry is correct with saying that there's going to be a 50% downturn or this analyst is correct with that, I don't know. And I'm not here to call what the number is going to look like, right? Because it's all about where the market is in front of us. And a lot of people are not trading the market in front of us. They're trading the market that they want. So if we do go down to $74,000 or below, which is MicroStrategy's buy price, then I reassess. Is this the time to buy? Are the bulls getting even more bullish? Are they going to buy this dip? Should I buy the dip with them? And there is a lot of fake outs going on here, right? We just heard about Jim Chanos closing his short position on MicroStrategy, and all the bulls are like, "Wow, we're going higher. That's over. Now that marks the bottom." It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. That didn't mark any bottom in the market. In fact, it's just a de-risking event. By them closing a short position means they're buying the stock, which pushes the stock price up. So it reinforces the bull thesis. Oh, you see, that was the bottom. Now we're going higher. But it's a fake out. It's a bull trap because the buying is only to cover the short position. There's no other institutional buying of MicroStrategy. There's no major Bitcoin buys of Bitcoin outside of MicroStrategy. And those numbers are going down lower anyway. And then we have the ETFs. We have new reports that BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF reserve net flow with $570 million sell-off. Now we keep hearing, well, BlackRock is buying, but there is net outflows over the past, 2 to 4 weeks in October and November of 2025. And a lot of this has to do with the macro environment and people shoring up liquidity because they understand that there are bubbles in the market, right? The AI bubble, the quantum bubble, the crypto bubble. Now, a bubble doesn't mean that we're going to zero. It just means that we're a little bit overbought here, okay? And so when we're overbought, we have to correct to the downside. And so the smart money knows this. And I have been explaining this to you guys for months now, since the middle of 2025, when we started to de-risk our thesis on this channel. And a lot of people say, Cryptoviser, you're wrong. It's not going to happen. No way. And meanwhile, we have been 100% correct. And those bulls that don't see any bearish sentiment at all or bearish risk, they have been 100% wrong. And if you think that I'm still wrong, I mean, we called the top of the market at $110,000. Now, we did go higher than that, which I said is possible. But then we came right back down. I mean, we've been literally wavering. And when you see this being formed, right, this wavering up and down, but barely moving, that is the formation of a top. The same way that when we're looking of when to re-enter the market, when to buy into the market, we're looking for a floor, a bottom. And a bottom isn't created in one day or 1 week. It's created over the course of a few weeks to a few months. And that's what we're seeing just the opposite of. And so BlackRock is seeing net outflows. And the bulls are like, no, BlackRock is buying. BlackRock is buying. It's like they have been buying for the last year and a half, 2 years almost. Meanwhile, James Wynn, a legendary Twitter trader who trades with high leverage on these levered dexes, he goes all in on shorting Bitcoin after 12 liquidations in 12 hours. The high leverage trader said he was all in, betting on a Bitcoin decline below $92,000, despite the optimism surrounding the end of the 40-day US government shutdown. Now, let's be clear. At the end of the day, right, the government shutdown doesn't really have any effect on the crypto markets. I mean, what effect has it had? The price has gone down. Now, people are going to correlate that and say, yeah, when they shut down the government and it kept going longer and longer, the price of Bitcoin went down. But again, you can take any chart and relate it or make it part of your thesis, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if we ignore the government shutdown, what has been going on in crypto, specifically Bitcoin, is exactly what I have been talking about for months, regardless of whether the government shut down or not. And we hear the same thing about the Federal Reserve. Oh, when they cut rates, the price is going to go up. Well, they cut rates already twice, and the prices of Bitcoin have not gone up because rate cutting is not money printing. These are two different things. Now, we are getting closer to money printing. And I think we're going to see it in 2026, but we haven't really seen it just yet. And by the way, even when they do start printing to an extraordinary rate, there's a lag effect, right? So if they start printing today, the market is not going to react immediately or the next day. It's going to take potentially months until that money gets into the economy and starts making its way into the markets. But a lot of people are ignoring this. They're ignoring the fact that people are getting laid off. They're ignoring the fact that we're at the end of the 4-year, the 2-year, sorry, I should say the 18-month cycle in the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. And by the way, I'm going to be doing a whole separate video on the Bitcoin halving cycle and how many think that it's canceled. But let's get back to this James Wynn situation, because James Wynn said this on X: "I'm all in. I'm going to be completely and utterly honest here, and this is the God's honest truth. I have sold my entire crypto portfolio, excluding long Bitcoin spot that I will never sell. And in the past few hours, I've deployed all stables, 30%, and thrown it all on top of short positions. No joke. As all in as I can get. Pedal to the metal, money where my mouth is." He said, "I'm going to make hundreds of millions from my leverage short positions, or I will go bust. If I go bust, it's fine. I will take my Bitcoin spot, cold storage, delete my X account, and live off my real estate and other passive incomes, and still drive off in the sunset with my wife and 4 kids." He said, "However, if I'm right, which I truly believe I am right, and we go lower, $67,000 to $92,000, here's the deal. I'm wrong, I delete my account forever. I'm right, 92,000 or below. You do a public apology saying James Wynn was correct all along. Deal?" Well, nobody is going to admit that he was wrong. I mean, Jim Chanos just closed his short position on MicroStrategy, and you have all the MicroStrategy bulls congratulating him. "Oh my God, Jim Chanos, you're so smart. You had a great trade. Amazing job. Congratulations." But what they're really saying is, "Pump my bags, Jim Chanos. Pump my bags. Say it's the bottom of the market." And he's not going to do that, right? Because the entire time that Jim Chanos was shorting MicroStrategy, they were calling him an idiot, saying that he's going to lose all his money, saying he doesn't know what he's doing, that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And they were wrong. Just as most of the market sentiment is usually wrong. If the market is bullish, you want to be bearish. When the market is bearish, you want to be bullish. When FTX collapsed, what did we do on this channel? We bought the bottom of the market. While every other YouTube channel was freaking out, saying, "I think Binance is going down next. I think Grayscale is going to have to liquidate. What other Coinbase is going to go down?" They were all freaking out. And what were we doing? We were buying the bottom of the market, because that we predicted that based on our analysis of where the market is and where the market was, and we were correct. When I sold my ADA back at the end of the last bull run, and I said we were rotating into a bear market, thousands of people unsubscribed from my channel. Hundreds of people were commenting that I'm an idiot, I'm an asshole, I don't know what I'm talking about. And meanwhile, ADA still, to this day, one full cycle later, over 4 years later, still has not recovered to those prices that I sold at when I called the top, when I called the rotation into a bear market, including those shills that were making videos saying, "Cryptoviser's an idiot. Go and let him know he's an idiot, that he sold his crypto." Don't, like, if you're that worried about my portfolio, clearly that is not a good investment, period. Because my portfolio is my portfolio. Why do you care if I'm selling my crypto? It's the same thing that's going on in Internet Computer Protocol ecosystem, where the Internet Computer Protocol, I sold my ICP, or most of it, over the last couple of months, and then the price all of a sudden started to pump. And why was the price pumping? Well, I said this is bull trap. This is fake pump. And sure enough, if you look at the metrics on the Internet Computer's own dashboard, none of the major metrics actually had any major improvements over the last 3 months, except for one area right here. The conversion rate of ICP into cycles, which is the compute money essentially for ICP. And look at what happened here. Look, once I posted the video, and by the way, all of my videos are delayed, so there's no counter trading on my trades, right? And so when I posted a video that I sold, look at what happened the same day. We started to see the T-cycle conversion rate going parabolic. And you can see it's even much higher than this purple line, which is the 30-day moving average. And so the conversion rate is basically converting ICP into cycles, right? So burning ICP and creating cycles to pay for compute. But if you look at the rest of the metrics on the ICP ecosystem, none of the metrics moved up that much. So it wasn't like there was this massive growth or adoption of the technology that would correlate with the conversion rate going up to this degree. And so what did we see? The conversion rate went up and the price went up, and people were coming on my channel, "Cryptoviser, you're an idiot. You sold at the bottom of the market." I'm like, Why do you think that's the bottom of the market? Nothing has fundamentally changed except for the price going up and the T cycle conversion rate happening. And so to me, this is a fake pump. This is an artificial pump. Why is it happening? I don't know. Maybe somebody's going in and converting their ICP into T cycles to pump the price up and get me or other YouTubers or everybody to talk about it and artificially create a little bit of a pump. But that's what you call a pump and a dump. And we don't get involved in that on this channel. And that's why we've kind of moved on from ICP, because clearly there's manipulation here. And it really is in my view, it's uninvestable at that point. And listen, I believe in the technology of ICP and the developers, what they're creating on the internet computer. But the manipulation from a price perspective, it's a real big turnoff from an investor perspective. Because if you're aping into it, and most of my viewers get the point, most of my viewers get it. This is the same exact thing that happened when we closed our ADA position back in the last cycle. Same exact thing, same exact sentiment. Cryptoviser, you're an idiot. Oh, look at the pump. You were wrong. You were wrong. And I'm like, I don't trade on day to day. I trade on the macro. And so if you're trading on the day to day and that's what you're trading, then go ahead and buy all the ICP that you want. But when it dumps, Cryptoviser was correct once again. Anyway, somebody actually posted, well, James Wynn, we can see your liquidation price in your hyperliquid account that everybody knows about. James Wynn wrote back, you have no idea where my liquidation price is. The OG $100 million account that gets headlines is a marketing account. I haven't deposited in it for months and months. I simply take the referral money and use it for marketing. People love to talk on it, make stories on it whether I open a trade, close a trade, profit in it, or get it liquidated. Do you understand? And so listen, I don't know whether James Wynn is going to be correct. I just know that our thesis on this channel has been 100% accurate this entire cycle. Have we been right on every single call, on every single crypto? No, we haven't. For instance, ICP was the worst performing crypto in 2025 in the top 50, down 50% up to the point that we exited the position in ICP. And then magically, right after we exit that position, all of a sudden it pumps from, I don't remember what the low price was, $2, $3 at the October flash crash, all the way up to $9. Yeah, that's a little bit interesting in my view. But anyway, so I don't know what James Wynn is doing here. I don't know whether he is, this is a psyop and he's actually, long the market and just saying that he's short to pump it. I don't know. But at the end of the day, our thesis has played out 100% correct this entire cycle and the previous cycle. And whether we're going to be right again or not, I don't know. But guess what? We've been right so far. Moving right along to $1.2 million in the red. Now, we have covered this trader, Josh, who has been calling for this $444,000 Bitcoin price pretty much all year. This is an article from July, the top of the market. When we called the top of the market, it says Josh Mandel, the former Salomon Brothers trader who accurately called Bitcoin's March breakout. Basically, he said that Bitcoin was going to go to $84,000. It went to $84,000 and then it picked back up in the beginning of 2025. He's doubled down in July, believing Bitcoin is headed to $444,000. His forecast gains new weight as institutional treasurers pour into Bitcoin, with MicroStrategy, Marathon Digital, and Metaplanet ramping up aggressive buying sprees. Now, again, this was the top of the market. This was after we called the top of the market on this channel. Go back on my videos and look. This was in July. Well, Josh, we covered, some of his trades because he's been pretty public with some of his trades. And we've been very clear back in, I think, September, that I think that he was getting caught up in the cycle, right? Because when you think about the psychology of the markets, people get caught up in it, right? They may understand that there's going to be a bear market. They may understand how the bull and bear cycles work, right? They may understand the Bitcoin halving cycle. But when they start making a lot of money in the markets based on their trades, especially early on in a bull market, they get lost in the sauce. And whether this is Josh or not, I don't know, but this happens to a lot of people. This happened to me in the previous cycles. This happened to me. I mean, I could have sold ADA at $3 in the previous cycle, but I got lost in the sauce. I was continuing to push the thesis without realizing that we were adjusting. We were starting to rotate. And then when I did say, whoa, 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 we are now rotating into a bear market, the bulls and the shills for ADA were trying to convince me that I was wrong. Same thing is happening with ICP this cycle, right? I was pretty much the major YouTuber that's been talking about ICP and the technology and the AI narrative that they, I thought it would kind of work out. And, you know, they do have AI technology, but it hasn't gotten the adoption that it needed, right? And so the minute that I flip, they're trying to convince me that I'm wrong, right? So much so that we're seeing manipulation from a price perspective. We're seeing manipulation on the metrics to pump the price to, oh, Cryptoviser was wrong. And then Cryptoviser comes on and says, yeah, I was wrong. I'm buying back into ICP at $9. Like, no. Like, I've already explained to my viewers, like, once I'm out of a crypto, that's it. That is it, right? If they don't perform in a bull market, I am not going to double down or even re-enter a position as we're rotating into a bear market. And nobody on this channel, nobody in crypto, period. There is the Federal Reserve and Congress maybe could change my opinion based on what they're going to be printing on the fact that we're rotating into a bear market. Nobody is going to convince me otherwise. There's going to be commenters, there's going to be other accounts that say that, oh, well, you know, we're never going to have a bear market again. It's complete and utter BS. And so this point, for me to be bullish on a crypto, it will take a lot, right? But in the previous cycles, like, I started to question, like, maybe I was wrong about ADA, but I wasn't. We haven't even gotten back to above $1 or something, right? And definitely didn't get back to the price that I sold my ADA at. So I was right, not just in the short term, but in the longer term on ADA for whatever reasons, right? I mean, a lot of that has to do with a lot of the inflation that and injection of ADA into the crypto ecosystem, which effectively dilutes the other coins in the ecosystem. But that's for a whole different day, whole different story. Back to Josh. So Josh has been getting lost in the sauce in my view, right? He's been holding on to this $444,000 price. Could we hit that? Yes, but it's going to take literally trillions of dollars to get there. I mean, tripling the valuation of Bitcoin at a minimum at 125,000, a little bit more than triple. So that means trillions and trillions of dollars of pressure to the upside. I think that was nearly impossible. And the fact that most of the ecosystem didn't realize and still doesn't realize that the OG whales have been selling. Now, we're going to go back to this trade in a second, but Bitcoin OG whales sell to get incredible tax advantages of ETFs, according to analysts. Many long-term Bitcoiners are selling up, such as early arbitrage trader Owen Gundin, who shifted the last of his 11,000 Bitcoin to an exchange. And people keep saying, like, oh, the OGs are not selling their coins. It's like, there's literally on-chain metrics that show you the OGs have been selling. All the Bitcoin treasury companies have been buying their Bitcoin from the OGs and giving them stock or giving them cash. They were the exit liquidity, right? The ETFs, the Bitcoin treasury companies, were the exit liquidity for these OGs who had hundreds of millions or billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. But the people who have, you know, maybe a few $100,000 or a few $1 million worth, they're like, no, OGs are selling. There's no way. It's like, no, you're not an OG. They're OGs. They have thousands and thousands of Bitcoin they've been offloading. And so that brings us to Josh. He said, earlier in the cycle, I published a MicroStrategy and MicroStrategy option-only portfolio. He said initially, it was entirely long. Then it shifted to short with in-the-money covered calls sales, as I predicted Bitcoin would hit $84,000. He said I suggested that Bitcoin would rally from that point, which it did, by the way. These moves worked out well enough, but I grew impatient with my final call for $444,000. And as they say, you're only as good as your last call. I take offense to comparisons to another Twitter influencer, and others who claim I stood to profit by issuing coins or misleading investors. He said, to be transparent, I'm sharing my personal loss from this poorly conceived trade. Now, listen, I don't think that he was trying to mislead people. I think that he really believed that Bitcoin was going to hit $444,000. And therefore, he purchased IBIT, which is the Bitcoin ETF from BlackRock, calls for $135 at the strike price. Now, right now, when I'm recording this video, IBIT is at about $50 or $60 in that range. And so this would have been more than a double of where we are currently. And Bitcoin, again, it would have to go up more than 3x to hit $444,000 from the all-time record high of $126,000, which it did not do, and I don't think it's going to do anytime this cycle. Maybe not even next cycle. We'll have to assess that in a future date. But effectively, you can see that he lost $1.2 million in this trade, a 95% drop. Now, keep in mind, earlier in the cycle, he took out $30 million from MicroStrategy trades and probably had other money in other accounts that he didn't share. But this just goes to show you, you're only right until you're wrong, and you're only wrong until you're right. And the further we go, like people who say, well, Cryptoviser, you've been wrong so far about the top of the market. Well, first of all, no, I haven't, because we're lower than the top of the market, and we haven't hit substantially new all-time highs. And even if you don't believe that that's the top of the market, the further we go, the closer we are to a bear market. And if you don't think that we're ever going to have a bear market again, you literally don't know what you're talking about. And this is probably your first cycle, and you're going to lose everything. And I mean, I feel for you. I mean, part of the reason I started this channel was because back in the first cycle that I was involved in buying, I just kept buying the dips because all the influencers said, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. And it was all liquidity suck. It was all liquidity drain. Like, there is going to be bear markets. There is going to be corrective phases. And if you cannot adjust the thesis and you just keep going, the further we go, the closer we are to that risk of you being wrong. Same thing for me, right? If I stay bearish for another 3 years when we're approaching the next Bitcoin halving cycle, and I don't adjust my thesis, well, then I'm going to be wrong at some point, and we are going to be bullish. That's why I say, like, I was bullish from 2023 into 2024 and even early 2025. But then there was no real movement in the markets and no other major catalysts. And then we had the Bitcoin treasury companies popping up. That was the top. And so we've been right so far. Now, that brings us to MicroStrategy, right? So the MicroStrategy bulls are still like super bullish on MicroStrategy's thesis. I mean, so much so that BitPain wrote this whole long thesis about the fact that Michael Saylor is taking up on the people who are effectively giving tens or hundreds of millions of dollars for these debt products that MicroStrategy is creating, which is true. But again, MicroStrategy is playing a different game than you and I, right? MicroStrategy has a very long time horizon. They could lose money for years and it doesn't matter. But if you lose money for years, you're going to run out of money and you're not going to be able to raise money like they're doing. And they're diluting the shares of the company because, again, they're on a longer time horizon. You know the risk of MicroStrategy selling their shares on the open market. Whether they're doing it every single time they raise money or they do it once a month or once a year, it doesn't matter. They're still doing it. And so you know that risk factor. If you're going to ignore the risk of them diluting your shares because you believe in what they're doing, then go for it. But you're still going to lose from a price perspective because the math is math, right? Nothing Michael Saylor says can change the fact that if he's diluting the shares, the price goes down. In fact, Michael Saylor doesn't say that the price of MicroStrategy is going to go up. He just wants to own more Bitcoin. So he doesn't give a about your shares. And this is where the MicroStrategy bulls, the Bitcoin bulls, they lose focus and they just stay bullish forever just because they bought at $100 and whatever $1,000, right? And we have a lot of these going on. Grant Cardone says that there will be a massive implosion of Bitcoin treasury companies. And by the way, I think it's already underway. Grant Cardone said that these digital asset treasury companies may pose a risk or a threat to Bitcoin. He said, I think there's going to be a massive implosion of Bitcoin treasury companies. Now, obviously we know that a lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies are already down significantly, right? And we've talked about this. He said, it's my biggest concern for Bitcoin and Bitcoin's price short term. He became a big Bitcoin investor, yada, yada. He said, the ones I'm worried about is the no company, the no business, the no accounts receivable, the no customers, the no service, the no product. Yes, you're going to sell shares on the ATM at the market, but it's actually an ATM, right? ATM machine, you go just take money out in order to buy Bitcoin and think that it's going to give you some kind of pendulum. Yeah, that ain't going to happen, bro. And so this is very interesting that this is coming from Cardone. He said that his funds differed from other Bitcoin treasuries because there was an actual business and cash flow. He said, I have $125 million of EBITDA in 1 year. Most of these companies won't have $125 million of EBITDA. That's basically like cash flow and profit. You could put them all together and they won't have that because there's no real company. And this is true. Guys, if you look at the Bitcoin treasury companies, Marathon Digital, it's a Bitcoin mining company that's pivoting to AI, but they're still the highest risk out of most of the Bitcoin mining companies that pivoted to AI because they have the most Bitcoin out of them. And they were raising money in the top of the bull market in July to buy more Bitcoin. Metaplanet, they have a hotel, which is like a motel, actually, and not a real big cash flow. What other ones are Bitcoin treasury companies? Well, Strive, right? ASST. What other business do they have? Kindly MD Nakamoto, which is down 97%. ProCap, which is Anthony Pompliano's company that I think just got the approval to go public under BRR on the stock market. They bought at literal all-time record highs, and they have no business, no cash flow, no EBITDA. And so how are they going to actually survive a bear market? Oh, I forgot. Michael Saylor said we're not going to have a bear market, so they don't have to worry about it. No, guys, that's the risk. And if you don't think that there's a risk to Bitcoin, there is. Because once the liquidity dries up for buying Bitcoin and the OGs are still selling, and there's a risk that these Bitcoin treasury companies may have to sell, which, by the way, some of them have already started to sell their Bitcoin, that whole thesis collapses. And then the Bitcoin price collapses under it. So he said about MicroStrategy, I think they're fine because of how much Bitcoin they have. Dude, you're so far ahead of the race. You're a bank. And I would agree. I don't think that MicroStrategy is at risk per se. The price of the stock is at risk, right? But I don't think the company is going to be at a fundamental risk like these other companies. But what we're going to start seeing, very similar to FTX, when FTX started buying up Celsius, Voyager, 3 Hours Capital, BlockFi, all these companies trying to bail them out. When these companies start collapsing, they're going to be absorbed, probably by MicroStrategy is going to go and try to buy them. And people are going to get bullish, but that's actually bearish. And then you have the Ethereum treasury companies, which are under the same situation, right? I mean, Tom Lee is still saying, and I like Tom Lee a lot, and I follow a lot of his calls, but he's still saying that Ethereum's going to hit 15,000, whatever it is, by the end of the year. It's not going to happen. It's not going to. How are we going to hit those numbers, right? When they're literally the only ones buying. This is a trickle, right? 10 years from now, we'll probably have a lot of Bitcoin treasury companies, a lot of Ethereum treasury companies, probably also with cash flow and businesses. But for the short term, right, they are the risk. They are the huge risk in the market. And the bulls, like BitPay and many of the other Bitcoin thesis companies, or I should say Bitcoin treasury thesis companies, like they don't see the risk. And all I see is risk, especially at the end of the cycle, that they're even louder now that there's no risk, there's no concerns. Meanwhile, we continue to see over 2 million Ethereum in the exit queue to get out of staking, and only 1.3 million to get back in. So where is the balance of that? Well, in my view, the balance of that is being sold. And that's why we're seeing companies like BitMine Immersion Technologies, since they launched their Ethereum treasury company, it's down 70%. SharpLink is the same thing. And then we have, like I said, the Bitcoin mining companies that pivoted to AI. They all are doing pretty well, right? Over 10x in Iris Energy. since, on the 1 year chart, over 10x. And you could see this sharp drop here. In my view, the top has been hit. Or we're going to have volatility. We could go higher. But it's a buy the rumor, sell the news event. We already know that they have deals with Google and Microsoft. They have these long-term leases. That was the news and that was the rumor. But we're past it now. So there's nothing else to push the price higher. There's nothing else that is going, unless there's more announcements that we're going to be getting, which I don't think that we're going to be getting as of yet. And so the only direction is down. And basically what we laid out in today's video is the direction is down for crypto-related companies, for AI companies, for AI-related companies. NVIDIA just hit $5 trillion, and it's having a very hard time maintaining that, because every dollar NVIDIA goes down is billions and billions of dollars in market cap. And so to go higher, it needs more inflows. But Wall Street hasn't even priced in the fact that NVIDIA lost the entire Chinese market, 95% market share in China to zero overnight. And none of that was priced in yet. It hasn't adjusted. And so crypto and AI and the companies that are related to these, in my view, the further we go, the closer we are, and closer we are into the downtrend, into the bottom of the market. And in my view, what we're seeing right now with the volatility and the major swings is the rotation phase from the bull market to the bear market. And some of the ecosystems will do anything to keep the price and keep the excitement elevated so that you keep putting your money in and they keep taking the money out. We're not going to do that on this channel. Our thesis has been playing out exactly as we laid it out when we called the top in the middle of the year. Go look at my videos from July. Just type in the Cryptoviser top. And you will see those videos in July. Everything that I said has been playing out from a market perspective, from a price perspective, from a sentiment perspective. And I think it's continuing. In fact, it's going to accelerate, because once we pass the complacency phase, euphoria was when the Bitcoin and Ethereum treasury companies popped in the middle of 2025, around July. Complacency has been since July till November. Now we're starting the downtrend. And when the downtrend accelerates, there's no end. Well, there is going to be an end, but it's going to take a while. And so when you hear these YouTubers or influencers saying, guys, that was the bottom, that's the dip, that's the bottom, ignore them and short even harder. In my view, that's what I would do. Because bottoms in the market don't get formed by one major move. It's a prolonged downtrend, as you guys can see from the previous cycles in Bitcoin. So anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments of this video. Don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up. You can disagree with my thesis, that's totally fine, but let's be respectful in the comments and understand the only thing that matters is what the market does. Not whether you're right or I'm right or we're both right. It's what the market does, because you're only as good as the last trade. See you guys in the next one. As always, crypto on.